Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, I will talk about Wayde van Niekerk. I will upload this in three parts. The first part is this. I talk about a little bit backstory. I talk about Wayde van Niekerk, so you know who the guy is, and a little bit about his injury problems. And if he can make the ultimate comeback. And some backstory to make the listeners make up their own mind. So, as you see here, Van Niekerk, born 15th of July 1992, he is a legend. Van Niekerk was the man who was to carry the mantle from Usain Bolt. He was going to be the new superstar in track and field. For a while it looked like it. He won 400 meter gold in the World Championship in Beijing in 2015. He set a new world record in the 400 meter 17 years after Michael Johnson set it in Seville when he won Olympic gold in Rio 2016. He also became the first person to run under 10 seconds in 100 meter, under 20 in the 200 and under 44 seconds in the 400 meters. He also won gold in the 400 meter in World Championship in London 2017. Everything seemed perfect. He looked like Usain Bolt's heir, and he was just feeling 25 years old at the time. But 2 months after his gold in London, he fell and slipped in a charity rugby game and tore his anterior cruciate ligament and meniscus cartilage. Everything seemed so fantastic. He was in heaven. But he quickly fell down to earth once again. As you will see here, Wayde van Niekerk. Here is Wayde as a young child. Here's he look very innocent there. And Wayde van Niekerk, he was born 11 weeks premature. I was actually born 3 weeks premature, but 11 weeks is a lot. And he needed blood transfusion the first 24 hours of his life. The professor told his mother that they only got 24 hours to live. Obstacles has been thrown against him his whole life, but he always found a way to not only overcome but thrive on them. Because of that apartheid regime in Africa, South Africa, his mother didn't get to participate in the Olympics between 1964 and 1988. Leading up to the 92 Olympics, it seemed like it would be the same, and when mother got pregnant. Right after this, South Africa was allowed to compete again. His mother, not very long after, decided to leave athletics and instead fully focus on being the mother of Wayde. She thought it was really tough to raise Wayde van Niekerk as a premature baby. Very hard. And if you didn't know, actually, when Van Niekerk was at school, he was bullied. He was very tiny for his age. And he was bullied, so we had to find comfort other places. His ability to run fast was one of them, and together with the Bible, they were used as tools to fight back. Here is a quote from Odessa Schwartz, who is the mother of Wayde van Niekerk. I was meant to go through hardships, but it wasn't meant for me. I was never meant to be great. I was meant to be the mother of someone great. And here Van Niekerk says, my motivation and inspiration is definitely the fact that I've been blessed with a natural God-given talent that not just anyone has. That it makes me want to reap and master it as best as I can. He and his mother, I think, thinks almost the same way. They have a belief that this purpose is to be great. And this purpose that the mother and Van Niekerk thinks he has can make him get that extra 1%. Here's also another quote from Van Niekerk. I think the reality for us as South Africans is that we always be underdogs, whether we like it or not. I won the World Champs in 2015 and the camera wasn't even focused on me at the Olympics the next year, he says. It's us, let's be honest, that's who we are, but it's a reality that doesn't faze me. I've always been seen as the guy that probably won't win, but look at what I have achieved. I never entered the race hoping to be a favorite. I raced to win races, gold medals, and now that I tasted a world record, to break world records. And I found it suitable to also have in that context a quote from the man himself, David Goggins. Some of the best fuel in the world is having the underdog mentality. Yet again in his life, Van Niekerk is seen as the underdog. Just when he had become too good to be called it again, life as everyone knows it throwed another obstacle in his way. Nearly 4 years ago, Wayde suffered medial and lateral tears of the meniscus and a torn anterior cruciate ligament at a charity touch rugby match. After surgery, he went through a protracted period of rehabilitation and what seemed an uncertain moment. He missed the chance to defend his 400-meter world title in Doha and better his 200-meter silver from London 2017. There were and are big concern if he will ever come back to his best. It's difficult to predict what he's capable of. NBC sports analyst Otto Bolden couldn't think of another top-flight sprinter return from an ACL and meniscus tear. Otto Bolden, who someone knows, he has run 9:86, I think, in 100 meter, and he's a world champion in the 100 meter, I think, or maybe the 200 meter. I'm not sure. But he's now the trainer of the brilliant prospect Brianna Williams. Even without the injury, Bolden believes breaking his own 400-meter world record was a tall order due in part of the circumstances of Rio. Van Niekerk had nobody in front of him in lane 8 and 2 past Olympic champions on his inside for motivation, even if he could not see them. And just to make it clear, just to say it clear, that the 400-meter world record that Van Niekerk took back in 2016, it was so good that many people think that is a one-time happening. It's just things that happen once every decade. It's just a thing that probably won't happen, that maybe won't happen in maybe 20 years. Just an incredible run by Van Niekerk. But to be a little optimistic about his injury, you have recent examples like Dalilah Muhammad, the 400-meter hurdles Olympic champion from Rio 2016, that was in the best shape of her life, after having struggling with injuries in the years after Rio. She was almost in the same situation like Niekerk. She worked on her weaknesses and was better than ever after the injury. She could work with only one goal in mind, setting the world record just like Van Niekerk wants to do. At the World Championship in Doha 2019, she ran a new world record, even faster than she ran in the 2019 USA Outdoor Track and Field Championships, where she also set a new world record. The media was at the time only focusing on Sydney McLaughlin, also called Sydney the Kid, and everyone wants to see how fast the new star could run. And then from an underdog position, the Olympic champion Dalilah Muhammad came and won the US national title and the World Championship. It is a bit like Michael Norman is now getting all the headlines and hype, while Niekerk can come from behind and shock the world once again. But how high is the probability that he will come back to his record-breaking shape again? To have an ACL injury as a runner is not very normal, but in other sports like rugby, football and basketball, it is quite normal. Here I will talk a little bit about how this injury is and what it is. Surgical treatment creates a new ACL from a tendon in the athlete's knee. Surgery is ideally done after the athlete has recovered from the initial injury and regained knee range of motion and leg strength. If the knee is still swollen, stiff or weak at the time of surgery, then the recovery may take longer. Overall, ACL surgery is about 90% successful in restoring knee stability and patient satisfaction. An athlete typically return to the sport within 6 to 9 months after surgery. Surgery is what Niekerk went through, but he has taken a lot longer than 6 to 9 months to recover properly. It is the same injury that, for example, that Zlatan Ibrahimovic had at Manchester United. It is also one of the most common knee injuries in football. The more twisting and turning in a sport, the more difficult it is to get back to your best. That's one positive for Van Niekerk. An ACL injury typically sidelines a player for 9 months, but can take even longer depending on the severity of the injury. The traditional way to repair the damaged knee involves removing part of a player's hamstring and using that to create a new ACL. This is a quote from consultant orthopedic surgeon Mark Frame from the article healthychildren.org, English Health Issues, Injuries, Emergency Sports Injuries. It takes a long time for it to fuse to the bone and to restore strength in the hamstrings and quadriceps, because they're inactive for so long during this process. New methods can repair the already torn ACL, which makes for a quicker return. But I'm not sure which procedure Van Niekerk went with. It can be crucial when thinking of how good he will be when he returns for full. We also have to remember that Niekerk went through surgery both of the meniscus and the ACL. This is a little more complicated and it's very essential to get the surgery right, since it's easier to get arthritis when you have a meniscus tear. In footballers, it's believed that the player will be back at their best physicality again around 24 months after an ACL injury, which seems to correlate with how it's going with Van Niekerk. One problem, of course, is that Van Niekerk is in a very measurable sport where every hundredth of a second counts. Only 1% decrease in performance is fatal. In comparison to Zlatan isn't a guy who is leaning very much on his sprinting speed. So if he was marginally slower after the injury, it wouldn't be something as noteworthy as if Niekerk was marginally slower. But again, if you look at Zlatan from the last 1 to 2 years, he has been playing really well in a very competitive league. He has turned the boat and made AC Milan pretty good again. I didn't think it was possible, but Zlatan isn't that far from where he was before the injury. He brought AC Milan from 12th place to 6th place in half a season. And this season, or the season that just ended, he made AC Milan even better, but only the period where he was not injured. But of course, Zlatan is a special kind of guy. He isn't the norm. You have cases like Yannick Bolasie and Nabil Fekir that arguably isn't at their former physical level, even many years after the injury. And even Zlatan had to pull out from this year's Euro 2021 or 2020 because of injury. And if you look at another example, a positive example, the 28-year-old footballer Danny Ings suffered actually 2 ACL injuries on each leg in 2 years. It's insane. One in 2015 and another one in 2016. So you see the stability, if one knee suffers, the other knee can also suffer, because the stability of both the knees and the legs will be weakened. Danny Ings was also almost the same age as Niekerk when he got the injuries, so it's a good comparison. And look now, 4 to 5 years after, he's better than ever while playing for Southampton. There's many examples of people who have defied the odds, and maybe one of them will be Van Niekerk. The details in every sport is important, and when you have a devastating injury, you have to go back to step 1 and rebuild yourself. You have to focus more on the little details which you maybe didn't look at before. You will now focus on aspects of the game that maybe gives you the extra percent. Some aspects of biomechanical and neuromuscular function may be deficient up to several years after the ACL reconstructions. Players should ideally continue post-ACL reconstruction neuromuscular training on a regular basis for the remainder of their career. The pressure also to get back is something that can prevent the athlete to come back at their best. Patience is so important. You have to have a great support team around you. Remember that Wayde got a setback in 2019 where he developed a bone bruise. He also struggled with his hamstrings and other things also. I think it was good because then he didn't have to rush it. The athlete has to slowly come back and get used to running. To win in Tokyo this year, he has to get enough races before the games to build confidence but also gradually getting used to the impact of pounding the pavement, and get his body used to the high velocities without thinking of getting injured. It can be a bit too steep of a climb if he just has this season to prepare. He'll be tempted to then maybe rest too much before the Olympics.